Hey everyone, welcome into another Sports in the Mitten podcast. My name is Thomas Beindit, and I am with Adam Biggers it is Friday, April 14th now. Adam, how's it going?
I'm doing well, Thomas. It's Friday, getting ready for the weekend. Tomorrow, the spring game. Last night, the ceremony for Miles Bridges out at the Sparty statue in East Lansing. It's there is a lot to talk about, and of course, the weather, man. Like I said, you're gonna hear me talk about the weather all the time. This is beautiful weather. I'm getting ready. We're gonna meet up with some friends. Probably right after the podcast and go throw and get our old butts in shape for the spring and summer. So, but yeah, a lot to talk about. I think probably what's on everybody's mind, at least my mind, fresh on my mind, is Miles Bridges' decision to return. What do you make? That's it. That's huge for Michigan State.
Yeah, I think you could say that.
Slightly, just a little bit.
We've talked on this podcast a couple times about Bridges and his NBA decision. I know I've talked about it numerous times on my on BT Powerhouse, my Big Ten hoops site, but I did not see this coming. I know I said numerous times I don't see what he would have to gain in coming back to school. And frankly, I still think that. I know that may upset people or, kind of annoy them and, whatever. But to me, I'm not going to go through the whole concept of why a guy should or shouldn't go. But to me, I've always had the rule where if you are a lottery pick or anywhere close, you just go. Don't risk it because you stand to lose more than gain. And, certainly for Bridges and, being a local kid, obviously everyone's going to root for the best and hope that nothing bad happens over the next year. But I did not see it coming. So I'll start with that surprise decision. But having said that, I wrote an article, you can, for our listeners who want to check it out on BT Powerhouse, and it was basically like, why is this a big deal? Miles Bridges coming back. Why is it such a big deal? And the thing is with Bridges back, Michigan State is easily the Big Ten preseason favorite, easily a top 10 team, probably a pretty safe top 5 team in the preseason rankings, and a legitimate national championship contender because the thing is, we talked about this when we were kind of taking our, are you going to take Michigan or Michigan State to get back to the Final Four first? And yeah. Obviously, neither of us
to return. I hope I premised it with that. At that point, did not expect Miles Bridges to return. It was more of a fluffy dream scenario for Michigan State basketball at that time than anything.
I don't think either of us predicted him to come back. But I would say, Michigan State was going to be a talented team coming into next season, referring to 2017-18, regardless of whether Bridges came back or not. You're going to have Winston back. You're going to have Ward back. You're going to have Langford back. That's 3 top 100 recruits who are going to go into their sophomore seasons. You're going to have McQuaid back, who was a top 100 recruit the year prior. And you're adding a really nice recruiting class with Tillman and I can't think of his name off the top of my head.
Jackson.
With Jackson. So, that's a lot of talent. That's a lot of depth. And that's not even adding in, the rotational guys like Tum, Schilling, who has, I saw earlier today, had said that he's planning on returning for his 5th year to East Lansing. So you're going to have a deep team. You were going to have a lot of guys, and particularly with guys like Winston and Ward, guys who project to be star players next season. But you need a superstar if you want to compete for a national championship. I know I have always been a believer, and I haven't gone through every season, to be honest, but if you look back over the last 15 to 20 years or so, you have to have an all Big Ten first-team guy if you want to win the Big Ten. It's just you're not going to do it unless you have a big-time guy. And I think you could make the case Michigan State didn't have that guy. Maybe Ward or Winston would have taken that step, or maybe they still will. But Bridges is that guy, obviously. I mean, he was close to – a lot of people voted him first team All Big Ten last year. And certainly you would expect him to have a stronger case next season, especially if he doesn't miss any games due to injury. So I think he's that magical piece that turns them into that next level caliber team. And, if I'm a Spartan fan, I'm thinking about some banners next year and some big-time trophies.
Well, I jokingly sent my one of my superiors an email. I said, hey, Miles Bridges – and this was earlier in the week where there were some rumblings about this, and the Vertical broke the news kind of publicly as far as. But I mean, there had been some rumblings. I think people closely cover Michigan State, that kind of stuff. But like I said, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, even this was at the end of the tournament. I even told you. I mean, if I'm Miles Bridges, I go. If I'm a projected lottery pick, he was projected 8-14. And he said that he didn't really spend a lot of time on this, and he has it till May 24th, not even going to test the waters. I remember Brennan Quinn of MLive asked the question, why not even go test the waters? And another thing, real quick, we all know that he had the ankle injury, right? Mm-hmm. So factoring that in, he was asked, and it wasn't a popular question for the crowd, but I thought it was a pretty good question. Tom Izzo thought it was a good question, too, about an insurance policy. And obviously, Michigan State, Miles, they are going, fullest extent of insurance policies. And I don't know the details of it. And, I'll work on to see if I can get some of those. But typically, these type of insurance policies protect future gains, future worth. Mm-hmm. So if the worst case scenario were to happen to Miles Bridges, but he would be, somewhat protected. But at the same time, Thomas, he really is a different kind of guy. Tom Izzo said it. I talked to Tom on the stage a little bit afterward. Miles loves college. He really does. He said it. I mean, and it was a very college-y feel, right? I mean, they're all gathered at the Sparty statue. It's a bunch of fans. They had chairs out for the media and stuff. They closed it down. Tom Izzo said he contacted the chief of police, earlier in the day. Draymond Green actually, Tom Izzo and Draymond Green had a conversation, and that, rather than doing it in a press conference setting, go do it outside. And Tom said, well, what if it rains? What if it's cold? And Draymond's reply was, well, they go to football games. So, it's like a real college-y pep rally kind of feel. Miles, I think, enjoys it, the whole experience. And he said he has to get better, and he wants to do it here, meaning in East Lansing. So I think Tom Izzo, of course, is the guy to do that. I think Miles enjoys being coached by Tom. And, Tom said over and over again he enjoys coaching Miles. So, I mean, there are so many layers to this. And if I may, since you had a chance to plug your Miles Bridges column, I also wrote a Miles Bridges column. That's on fanragsports.com. You can follow them on Twitter at fanrag_u. So, yes, every way we look at it, historic comeback for personal reasons, and forget just the Flint thing. I asked him, it's not just the Flint thing. It's he wants to. Okay, so that's the personal reasons there. The connection to Izzo and Michigan State is real. Connection to his teammates. I talked to Tum Tum afterward. He said that most of those guys figured he was going to be gone. He's that type of talent, right? Mm-hmm. But Miles never acted like that. Never foot out the door. Never, hey, I'm a one and done guy, and you guys are temporary. I think Miles feels some type of real connection, and at least real enough connection for 2 years, and that can be about as permanent, I think, as anybody can ask for out of a kid who is NBA ready right now. I mean, there's no question he can go to the NBA right now.
Oh yeah, right? For sure.
8-14 pick, several teams. He wants to stay in college.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think there was kind of some drama, and maybe it was Michigan fans who were a little bit disappointed Bridges was coming back, or some other fans who were just surprised. But from everything we've heard, and I mean, you've been talking about it for weeks, how much Bridges enjoys East Lansing and enjoys college, that this was a personal decision. I don't think anyone forced him into coming back. I don't think Izzo was down on his knees, begging Miles to come back.
Yeah, he was. He
Well,
was.
okay, a little bit.
That did happen. He said so. I don't know about to that extent, but Izzo definitely pleaded a case to get Miles to stay. I believe that.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I do think this brings up an interesting topic, which I'll reserve for a couple minutes later here. But this whole, Izzo's had some serious luck with getting these guys to come back over the last 5 to 6 years. I mean, outside of Deontay Davis, Izzo, I mean, in at least recent memory, is kind of undefeated on these, where there isn't an obvious guy who's leaving. I mean, and what I mean by that is if a guy is 50-50 or maybe a little less likely to come back, Izzo has done pretty well with these guys. I mean, you think Harris after his first year, Payne as well. I mean, I think some of these other ones, but even some of the ones from the early 2010s,
Well, I mean, a guy like Adrian and Brandon, Brandon Dawson, Adrian Payne, they were big time recruits, right? But I don't think they were ready. I mean, I don't think they were one and done material. Gary Harris, maybe. I think I mean, if my memory serves me correctly, I believe he was kind of on the fence for that, but. Yeah, I mean, overall, you're right. I mean, Izzo does get some pretty good guys, and he does get them to come back. Is that because they don't turn into stars, though? I mean, is it because they get to East Lansing and they're not the super? I mean, I remember Calvin Torbert from Flint, right? I mean, he was a Gatorade Player of the Year in high school. And
well, this serves as a perfect segue into the topic that I wanted to get into next. I threw this up on, what was it, Wednesday when the original report came out from the Vertical on Bridges coming back. And it was a stat that really intrigued me, and it was because it was something that, had always kind of been a general narrative, but I kind of wanted to look into it a little bit just to verify it. And Izzo had, over the last, I want to say 7 years or so, he's had 6 McDonald's All-Americans. And that does not include Jackson, who has obviously not arrived on campus yet. And only one of them has been a one and done, and that was Deontay Davis. The other ones, Keith Appling, Dawson, Bridges, and Harris. I'm missing someone here. But the five remaining McDonald's All-Americans, I'll try to look this up quickly as well. But the 5 other ones were not one and dones. Now, that doesn't mean, obviously Harris, he got drafted in the first round after his sophomore year. It would be pretty shocking if Bridges doesn't get drafted after his sophomore year.
Oh, yeah.
And so, I mean, I'm not trying to say these guys, and Dawson as well, I should note, he was drafted, although it was at the very tail end of the second round after his 4th year. But I found it interesting. I don't know. Did you find that interesting that, 5 of his last 6 McDonald's All-Americans were not one and done?
Well, I could speak specifically on at least 3 of these guys because, I mean, with Gary Harris, Adrian Payne, Brandon Dawson, I think that Brandon had a respectable career. Both he and Adrian had respectable careers. I don't think that we saw peak level what was expected from those guys coming in.
Mm-hmm.
At least I didn't. I mean, I expected Brandon Dawson to be nothing short of a star, and I think that Tom Izzo did too. And of course, I mean, that was another guy in injuries. You can't blame that. Gary Harris, good for him for returning for his sophomore year, and I think it was more so because he wasn't going to be as high of a draft pick as he probably would have liked. So he was either, likely advised, hey, you need to return to improve your draft stock. I don't think that, and of course, players bloom later in their careers, but I mean, I don't think that we've seen the best that they have to offer. In Miles Bridges' case, I think we've seen the best of Miles Bridges, and it's just he wants to get better. I think he wants Michigan State to get his absolute best, and I think that. And Tom Izzo mentioned the jump, between the freshman sophomore jump. is like the biggest in a college basketball, and then going on to be pro. That's the biggest leap right there in your career. So, I mean, I'm wondering if that factors into anything. But luck getting guys, yeah, I'll agree with that. As far as being lucky what he gets out of all of them, I mean, maybe not. I mean, like I said, I was a little bit underwhelmed with Brandon Dawson's career. It was respectable. Maybe my expectations were too high. Adrian Payne, I think we saw, glimpses of the best of Adrian during his senior year. Keith Appling is another guy I thought that we could. Keith had a decent career, but it's not maybe that maybe like I said, maybe my expectations are too high, or I don't really think I don't think specifically with Gary Harris, Adrian Payne, or Brandon Dawson that those guys really developed a whole hell of a lot as much as they should have in college. And is that Izzo's fault? I don't know. Is it on the players? I mean, I tend to blame, and I don't want to use the word blame, but I tend to put that more on the player. I mean, it's all about work ethic. And I know Adrian worked hard. I know Brandon worked hard. But like I said, that's just how I view it. I don't think Izzo has gotten the best out of all these guys. And maybe with a guy like Miles Bridges, maybe this does make the state. Maybe this does help make a little bit of a statement. Look, I got a one and done guy. He came back, and look, now he's going to be a mega superstar. Because really, I feel like Miles Bridges is on a collision course. Let's say he has a monster year. He top 5 pick next year, top 3 pick next year. If we see the whole package, he was forced to play, at the 4. Michigan State's going to have a lineup to where he could be a more natural 3. So I think there are a lot of positives for a return for Miles Bridges. I really do. Other than the fact that he is giving up millions of dollars right now, would go 8 to 14.
Just that little fact.
That's the greedy side. That's the greedy side. But I'll throw it to you after this. One thing, what I think a lot of people don't understand about Miles is that is not what motivates this kid at all. The material, anything that has to do with material, wealth, that kind of. I mean, he's tweeted it. Follow him on Twitter. None of that stuff seems to motivate him. I mean, I think that in the back of his mind, it's got to motivate him. But that's not what's driving him. He's not consumed by that. He said that it's the best decision for his mom wants him to go to the NBA. I mean, she sat right up there and said it, but she backs Miles 100%. So, I mean, again, Izzo says he's a different kind of kid. I do believe that.
So I just wanted to set a little context here just because I brought it up, and I should probably have the names.
I kind of went off right there. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it was good stuff. So these are MSU's highest profile recruits of the last 8 years or so. So 2008, Rowe, you mentioned him. He was a 5-star recruit. He was not a McDonald's All-American, but he was a 5-star. 2009, Adrian Payne was a 5-star recruit. Not a McDonald's All-American, oddly enough. Appling was a McDonald's All-American. 2010, Brandon Dawson, he was both a 5-star and a McDonald's All-American. 2012, Gary Harris, same status, McDonald's All-American and a 5-star. Deontay Davis in 2013 had both. And then last year's class in 2016, where Bridges and it was Langford, that was the guy I was missing, were both 5-stars.
Oh, yeah,
and, McDonald's All-Americans. And, I tend to agree. I mean, it's hard to rip on, player development and so on, because to an extent, I mean, Harris still went in the first round. Payne went in the first round. Bridges is going to go in the first round next year, barring some catastrophic injury or something along those lines. So, I mean, you're still getting 3 first-round picks. Dawson, he got drafted. Deontay Davis went close to the first round.
I mentioned Deontay. Did not see peak level Deontay until the tail end, and it was just I feel my personal feelings are that Deontay Davis was one of those guys who had a foot out the door. And Tom Izzo was referencing, and in no shape or form am I connecting this. I'm not saying Izzo said Deontay Davis, but Izzo said in general that one and done types, a lot of guys, before the season's over, they do have a foot out the door.
Yeah.
And Miles did not. So I feel like as good of a player as Deontay was, and what we saw from him late in the year, I don't think he's another guy. We did not see peak level.
Yeah, I agree. And my only point here is not to, shout out, wow, Izzo's been terrible with all these guys or some kind of message like that. Because again, I mean, Harris clearly chose to come back to East Lansing. Obviously, Bridges did as well. A lot of these guys made that decision on their own. But yeah, I mean, Izzo has not gotten the best out of these guys. I'm sorry. Some of them, yeah. But, I mean, when you're talking about this many elite recruits and kind of the up and down production, I mean, Gary Harris, I know he's one of the ones I would actually say I think Izzo got just about everything. I mean, he would have been Big Ten Player of the Year as a sophomore if not for Nick Stauskas just balling out all year.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, and I think, like, we'll see. I would anticipate Bridges is going to be the front runner for Player of the Year next year. So we'll see. Absolutely. But Langford certainly. I mean, he was a freshman this year, so it's hard to get too down on him. But not really anywhere close to the 5-star level, I would say. You mentioned Davis, limited minutes for his 1 year. Dawson, I mean, people are going to disagree with this, but I'm sorry. If you're a 5-star and or a McDonald's All-American and you stay 4 years at a college, something went wrong. Maybe, Dawson, obviously you can talk about the injuries. Rowe, you can talk about the injuries, but I'm sorry. That's underachieving in my book. And I know some people are going to disagree, but
that's where like, because of star rankings, and I'll admit sometimes I do get caught up in that myself, exactly with it, and that's where the star rankings translate to expectations, right? Mm-hmm. And then what type of expectations? I mean,
and my only point here is I know a lot of people are going to take this as a shot at MSU, which it's not meant to be. I mean, if anything, MSU fans should be immune to any criticism right now. They just got Miles Bridges back. I mean, what better news do you need? But
pretty good.
Yeah. MSU fans should be doing backflips right now. But I think you look at, if this was one guy or two guys over like a 1 year stretch, I think you could sit back and be like, oh yeah, it's just a unique situation. But this, to me, it's starting to become some type of trend here. And again, Bridges shouldn't be the straw that breaks the camel's back, because he could have easily gone and been drafted very high this year. But it's just an odd situation. And, I brought this up and you kind of get mixed feelings about it. But I said this: if John Calipari got 6 McDonald's All-Americans in a class and only one of them was one and done, people would be flipping out right now. And it would be one of the biggest stories in college basketball. And I understand this is not in 1 year, but I just think this is something that deserves some conversation, I guess.
Well, and it does. But like, I feel like it's only fair to premise it as Miles could go. I mean, Tom Izzo, even, I mean, as much as Izzo wanted him back, at the same time, Tom wanted him to make the best decision. And to go was not the best decision. I feel like, yes, Izzo wanted him back, but at the same time, he was realistic. And I think Izzo told me for 2/3 of the season he thought that Bridges was gone.
Yeah.
And then I'm not sure what game it was. I want to say maybe, was it after an Iowa game? I don't know. It was a Big Ten game, okay? Izzo walks up to the podium, and I typically sit kind of like middle in the second row so I could get video, or I was in the first row. Anyway, I was right by there, and he was by the microphone, but he wasn't speaking directly into the microphone. And he said, "Enjoy Miles Bridges." I think I've told you this. And I asked him about that, if you remember, and he goes, "Yeah, I thought he was gone." And I said, I thought you thought that too. So yeah, Miles Bridges like falls into his own category. You know what I mean, when it comes to this, because he is not a typical one and done kid. He's got the talent. He's a typical only needs 1 year of college to go showcase it kind of guy, but he's not. He really does enjoy it, and I think that the connection to Tom Izzo, like I said, is a real thing. And I mean, we see Michigan State with the recruit. Who knows? I mean, does Brian Bowen come? I mean, does this allow? I mean, they're going to kind of the same position, right? So, I mean, regardless of if he gets any more recruits, Izzo's already got a stacked class with Jaron Jackson, Xavier Tillman, Gavin Schilling coming back, and Nick Ward. I mean, you have all the ammunition you need up front. And I'd like to make this point for, I'm mentioning some of these, big time recruits who maybe didn't meet expectations. But I mean, Denzel Valentine was a 3-star recruit, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And he became a Spartans legend, one of the best players in program history. I mean, Draymond Green wasn't like a superstar blue chip. Let me spit it out. Blue chip 4-star guy. But Draymond, I think, lived up to. I think he had a pretty good career. I think maybe. I mean, he was behind some talented guys, but I mean, I try to think of some other guys.
That's one thing I did want to mention on the other side of it. He has had guys who obviously have overachieved based on what their ranking was. I mean, a guy who pops into my head, at least I know he had a decent ranking coming out of high school, but I thought Matt Costello was one of those guys who quietly turned into a really nice player.
As a senior, absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm trying to look up what he was as a recruit. Okay, he was a 4-star. He was a fringe top 100 guy, 94th in the country. So I mean, 4-star, but very, very bottom end of the 4-star range. But yeah, I mean, he's had guys on the other end that have overachieved. And I did want to just add one last little tidbit for this conversation was just did you get a chance to watch that 30 for 30 last night on John Calipari?
I did not. I did not.
It wasn't the best 30 for 30. I'll say that much, but it was interesting and brought up a lot of how much of a game changer he was in terms of his recruiting style, and certainly when the one and done rule got
they call it the dirty 30. Was that what John Calipari, the dirty 30? I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to turn this into a John Calipari podcast, but
I'll hold myself back. He is a fantastic recruiter, no doubt about that. I took a cheap shot at him just, I guess, for the sake of it. So I'm sorry.
I thought it was interesting though. He was talking about back when he was at UMass, and he had a guy who I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but who was a projected lottery pick. Like he was for sure going to go. Yeah. You know what? Maybe I don't think it was actually on second. Regardless, the identity isn't super important to the point. But projected lottery pick, and he was like, I'm thinking about coming back to school. And Calipari told him, I will rip up your scholarship. Like, I will not allow you to come back to school because it will not serve your best interest. Like, you will not have a scholarship if you come back here next year, which I thought was obviously, like, it was obviously to be dramatic, but I was like, man, that is one way to take these kind of discussions where he literally told him to go. And he only played like 1 year in the NBA, got hurt, and his career was essentially over at 21. And I'm not, obviously, again, as we said, rooting for the best for Bridges. Hopefully he improves his stock, if anything, coming back. But I do think there's a reason why people say, if you're a lottery pick, go pro. And we'll see what happens with Bridges, but it's gonna be a challenge to live up to the hype next year. I'll just say that much.
Yeah, I'll end with this, with the Bridges thing. I do think, I mean, the college, the national championship, Final Four, that kind of stuff, that does mean a lot to him. And like I said, it's not to overemphasize the Flint connection because he's doing it for personal reasons, but you have to factor in everything that goes into it, and all of that does play, into his decision. So the personal reasons, loves college, wants to win a national championship. Another team that wants to win a national championship, and they're going to show off some of these skills tomorrow, Thomas, the Michigan annual spring game, maize versus blue. I don't have a full roster. It'll be fun to see who plays where. I want to see Mason Cole, if he's going to line up as a center. There's some talk about Patrick Kugler. We're not going to be able to get great reads, obviously, right, with the 2s and 3s, but it'll be fun. And we talked a little bit about it last week. But now that we've each kind of had a little bit more time to think about it, other than the topics that we talked about in the previous episode, what else is jumping out about the spring game? Like, what is there anything on your mind right now where I can't wait to see this. I need to see how this unfolds.
I'll start off with, I'm going to the game tomorrow, so I'll be excited to head down there and just check out the sights in Ann Arbor again. I believe it's supposed to be a nice day. Knock on wood. Michigan hasn't been too lucky in terms of weather for the spring game over the last 5-6 years. So it would be nice if it was a dry day. But I would say, as far as what's kind of popping out to me, just kind of following along the tidbits, from whether it's the beat writers or the insiders, I'm really interested to see this Brandon Peters thing. Allegedly, he's starting for the Maize team, and Spate is starting on the blue team. So I'll be intrigued to see if he is legitimately the number 2 quarterback right now. I'm sure Harbaugh will not tell us who is actually in front on the depth chart, but I'm interested to see what he can do, because he showed a few flashes in the spring game last year, and obviously he's the quote unquote future for Michigan football. So I'm interested to see that. And it seems like, you've been talking about him, but it seems like the Kareem Walker hype, it continues to build. So I'll be looking forward to those 2 things off the bat.
Yeah, the backup thing, just because, and Jim may say, because I'm trying to think of, Spate was injured. What year was this? 15 spring game. Right,
Okay.
and I think he said that Shane Morris was the backup at that point.
Okay.
And that was like the only really definitive thing we ever got about that. But defensive line, I want to see, but it's almost like I know what to expect. They're going to be good. I don't really have there's not too much trepidation on my end or uncertainty. I think they're going to be a good defensive line. I'm pretty excited to see Devin Bush Jr. I think he hits hard. Demeric Woods too, because I think where Michigan's linebackers in the secondary might be able to make up for, maybe, and I'm not saying that they don't have skill X, Y, and Z, but let's face it, they're replacing All-American, all Big Ten guys. So I think where maybe some of these guys in the secondary can make up for some of that is physical, like knocking the hell out of people. And I think Jameric Woods is going to be one of those guys. I think Tyree Canal is going to be one of those guys. David Long is a really good coverage guy, and we've heard a lot about him. So the secondary, I want to know who's going to be kicking field goals.
Yeah.
Right? Michigan just lost one of its greatest kickers, and it's weird for me to say because Kenny from the Fenton area, or from Fenton in the Flint area, I remember when he was in high school, and to say that Kenny Allen is one of the greatest kickers / punters in Michigan history is a pretty cool thing. So if you're a kicker or the punter, Quinn Nordine, pressure, right? You're walking in and replacing a guy who never missed an extra point. So I think, and then obviously, if they get dual punters, one guy, I think it's probably going to be one kicker, one punter. We'll see. That interests me. Another thing that interests me, I guess, just from an overall standpoint, is I want to not only Kareem Walker. I've been thinking a lot more about Karan Higdon, and I'd like to credit somebody for commenting on a video. We did, like you mentioned, Karan Higdon. That got my wheels turning, but then that person's comment also got my wheels turning, because I was like, hey, we did. Thomas corrected me, but Karan Higdon. He's got that quick speed. I don't know if he's I feel like he's more of the straight line, quick speed. He could pinball a little bit. I like Kareem more from the strength standpoint, but it's just different style of fast, I guess. So that's what I'm really looking out for.
Yeah, and we've talked about that rotation of running backs. Are they going to have a future guy? Are they going to have a couple guys? So yeah, I'm interested to see if there's a divide. I think, at least from my impressions, obviously at least I haven't gotten to see them play at all this spring and since the Orange Bowl. But my impression has been it's Chris Evans' job to lose. He's the primary guy, and we'll see. But is it going to be that rotation again, or is there a clear divide? And from the hype that we're hearing on Higdon and Walker and such, I don't think the divide is going to be all that great. But I am intrigued. I am intrigued to see that. And Adam, I'll ask you this: do you think this is going to be another one of those, like 2015? The offense was just completely shut down. I don't even know if they scored a touchdown in that game, or they did late or something. But do you think this is going to be a game where the offense gets totally shut down? Because on paper it looks kind of like a mismatch, especially if they're splitting up that offensive line.
Well, I mean, I think if you're the blue team, you're going to have a decided advantage with Wilton Spate, and I believe Tariq Black's also on the blue team, correct? So
I think so.
Yeah. Do you have the rosters? I haven't seen complete rosters. I know some people have been able to get some information as far as tweeting out people from different outlets.
Yeah,
I don't have that list in front of me.
Yeah,
I know Chris Evans is on Wilton's team.
Okay. So it looks like the blue team's going to have the powerful offense then.
Yeah, I mean, if you have the starting quarterback who is next level, heads and shoulders, we already talked about it. I mean, he's going to make receivers look good. They have a lot of young receivers. Here's another thing though that I want to mention, because I think I like Brian Smith because he will have a discussion with you. He's not going to just give you all like coach talk, right? He did mention that there were several wide receivers that were banged up during spring. So we're, maybe pay attention to that too. Who's out there, who isn't, as far as he didn't mention who it was, but I could say that I've heard that Kakoa Crawford has had a good spring. Donovan has had a good spring. Tariq. So, I mean, I don't think any of those three guys are injured. Mo Ways has been out there. So I don't know who's injured, but keep your eye out for guys who are going to be in there and who aren't going to be in there, because Brian Smith, the defensive backs coach, did mention that some receivers were banged up, and that was in response to, how the defensive backs looked like against the wide receivers, and he's like, well, this, that, and the other. This is what happened. Videos on my YouTube channel, so check that out. Some of the receivers have been banged up, so we haven't seen, full whatever. So take that into consideration. Keep your eyes peeled for that.
Let me ask you this as well. What's something, because we're all obviously, us as media members, fans, generally speaking, everybody's trying to figure out, okay, what does the spring game mean for next year? What can I read out of this game to tell me if Michigan will beat Ohio State this year? Whatever. Everybody likes to extrapolate, look into this thing. So from a positive side of things, what should Michigan fans feel happy about if they see it on Saturday? And on the other side, what should they worry about if they see it happen on Saturday?
Well, this goes to that counterpoint thing, right? I mean, if you see your returning starting quarterback, go out there and tear up the opposing secondary, well, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? But then again, you got to consider, well, these aren't all the ones. So, I mean, I don't feel like there's a ton that you can gauge. I feel like the main thing that you can look at the young players, right? Because we already know what some of these more experienced players can do in game environments. Look at some of these young players, because really this is going to be one of the more competitive, one of the more competitive scrimmages they've been involved in, right? Especially these early enrollee kids. They're going up against college men. They're not in high school anymore. So I think that for me, at least, that's more or less what you could take. I mean, pay attention. What does Donovan Peoples-Jones look like? I mean, it doesn't really matter if it's a 2 or a 3 covering him. What matters to me is what he looks like catching a ball from a college quarterback, whether it be Brandon Peters or John O'Corn, or whether it be Wilton Spate. And especially with Wilton Spate and some of these young receivers, see how they catch a ball from a quarterback who is proven, that he can win. He's an accurate quarterback, third highest quarterback rating in the Big Ten last year at the 61, almost 62% completion percentage. So that's that kind of little stuff like that's what I'll be watching.
Yeah, I mean, I would say for me, I think from the positive side, I think if you're a Michigan fan, if Michigan can run the ball consistently on Saturday, I think fans should be excited about that. And the reason I say that is because to me, the most proven position group on the team is defensive line. I mean, you talked about it. You have Rashawn Gary, you have Chase Winovich, Monet, Hurst, star power galore. And a lot of those bench guys, I feel like if there's a position I feel like Michigan knows how to develop guys, it's defensive line. I mean, Greg Madison's track record kind of speaks for itself.
Greg Madison is the reason.
Mm-hmm.
I will stand by that for as long as I have to, or for as long as Greg Madison's there. Greg Madison is the reason for this defense. Not just the defensive line, this defense. He was the defensive coordinator, let's not forget. But I know that, Don Brown, DJ Durkin, Don Brown's doing a fantastic job. But, I mean, Greg Madison's a guy I feel like literally was out there with the levels and the bricks and everything, making this foundation, making it all something sturdy to stand. So, really, I've written about this. I've, saying the praises of Greg Madison, fantastic guy, coach. But
I
know Don Brown gets a ton of credit, but like you mentioned, the defensive line, don't forget to give credit where it's due. Greg Madison is well deserving of as much credit as you want to give him, which should be a lot.
Yeah, I would say two things as far as that goes. First off, if Greg Madison wanted to leave and become a defensive coordinator, he would get about 90 offers from around college football, and he could go almost anywhere he wanted. As a coordinator or a defensive line coach. So, I mean, we're talking about a big time coach. And second, I mean, since he got on the job in 2011, with Hoke, Michigan's had a good D-line every single year. And I know part of that is the recruiting. Part of that was Hoke, obviously being a D-line center coach. And part of that has been DJ Durkin and Don Brown. But their D-lines have been great, and I completely expect it to be great again this year. I'm sure you can get into a debate about, is it going to be the second best one in the Big Ten or the first, or, where's it going to rank nationally? But it's going to be a good D-line. I think everyone would agree with that, barring, again, the usual, somebody gets in trouble or someone gets hurt, so on and so forth. But so if Michigan can run on that D-line, I feel like that's a very encouraging sign because we know what the D-line is because of what it's done against other teams. So I feel like that's one of the areas where we can actually look and say, Maurice Hurst and Rashawn Gary probably haven't gotten worse since the Orange Bowl, or at least not considerably. So if Michigan can run the ball, I think that's encouraging. And I think on the other end, which – it's going to be tough to read into this because it's a lot of new faces, a lot of young guys, and a lot of, frankly, people we haven't seen much. But I think if Michigan is passing consistently on that secondary, I think you have to be a little bit concerned. I know you have Wilton Spade coming back, experienced quarterback, but with such young receivers and such a thin margin for error in that secondary, I think you need those starters to be locked down quality guys. And I think if you have freshman receivers getting wide open against them consistently, and I should clarify, I'm talking more about, the missed assignments, a guy running out across the field wide open, stuff like that. I think those are the things, that I would be a little bit concerned about if Michigan's doing on Saturday.
Well, I will be at the spring game tomorrow. I'll probably get there early for the lacrosse game, try to catch a little bit of that. I'll be picking up some Raisin Nut Brand from Alex Bricker, the Twitter follower. Pretty cool guy. Appreciate that, Alex. Can't wait. I'm serious. I can't wait. I'm half inclined to send an email to request that there be milk. So I can. I don't know if I can pull that off. Probably not. But I'll definitely get into that. But on a serious note, follow me on Twitter at AdamBiggers81 for Michigan spring game coverage. I'll have stuff all throughout the weekend, all throughout next week. Video on my YouTube channel. Of course, we'll have some updates on on the Sports in the Mitten Twitter account. Follow that at Mitten Sports MI. And again, that's sportsinthemitten.com.
And you can follow me on Twitter at tbeindit, or for my Big Ten hoop stuff at BT Powerhouse.
Again, Michigan stuff at FanRag_U on Twitter, FanRag Sports. I'm Adam. He's Tom. I'm doing the close today. I'm Adam. He's Thomas. We're Sports in the Mitten. Thanks a lot for watching, listening, and we'll catch you guys most likely after the Easter weekend. Thanks a lot.